Let's get to the news story first, then let's see if we can figure out what's behind the story. Last night, 6 members of the Notre Dame football team were arrested in 2 separate incidents. In one incident, 5 guys were in a car. 5 members of the team were in a car. And let me see, there was drugs in the car, and there was a loaded gun in the car. So 5 of them got arrested. I think there were a couple of felony charges as well. In the other incident, it was after a nightclub bar closed. Big fight broke out. Notre Dame guy is caught in the middle of a bunch of fights. He ends up fighting with a cop. Oh, no, let me rephrase that. He ends up attacking a cop. So he went to the Hooskow for that, too. Okay, so everybody's black. Not that much of a surprise. But it really kind of makes you think of something slightly larger than just a bunch of black people getting arrested for carrying guns, drugs, and fighting. I mean, Notre Dame is not an easy college to get into. And once you get in, even if you're not a football player, forget football for a minute. Even if you're not a football player, once you're there, I mean, it's not an easy college to get through. I mean, you have to go to classes, you have to take classes, you have to pass, or you get kicked out. That's the same way at a lot of these top schools. How about the University of California? That's very difficult to get into. Well, once you're there, you might have been the smartest kid in your class, but all of a sudden, you're in a class full of other kids who are the smartest kids in their classes. Do you ever wonder how football players do in these situations? Well, football players, of course, get in through one way or another. They pass a test, or I mean, they're getting in basically the same way a lot of other black students get into these highly competitive schools. There's been a lot of articles written on this, but one of the biggest advantages black people have when applying to college is colleges accept lower SAT scores from black people. I think there was a New York Post had a big story on this a few months ago. I think it was called "The War on Asian Success," and basically, if you're a black person, you get a 250-point advantage over an Asian, over a white person, and like a 300-point advantage over an Asian person. Whatever the exact numbers are, it's an enormous advantage. But here's the thing. I mean, you can get into a college, okay? But the hard part is staying in. I mean, it would almost be like, say like for some reason they say, Colin, we want you to be on the Notre Dame football team tomorrow. I would say, okay, well, I don't know. Is there a way you can hide an old, slow white dude on your football team on the field? They go, yeah, we'll just put you in during the running. We'll make you the safety. But the only time we'll put you in is on running situations. Well, it would how long would it take to figure out that the old, slow white dude is playing safety during running situations? That means they would start passing down there, and the opposite team would get lots and lots of points because of my meager athletic abilities. Well, college is the same way. You can hide for a little bit, but you can't hide forever. Here's how the schools solved the problem. They created black studies departments. So if you're black and you go to a school and you're not really down with the math, the science, the foreign language, even the sociology or the English, where you actually have to show up and do some work once in a while, and if you're not down with that, because you know that white people are, always victimizing black people for no reason whatsoever. Well, the colleges figured that out, not just for their black students, but for their black athletes. And so when you go to these schools, you basically just get shuffled into these classes, and you can take one after another. And really, as long as you know what I'm about to say, you can get an A on every single test, every single essay, every single whatever, as long as you remember that black people are relentless victims of relentless white racism all the time, everywhere. That explains everything. You're going to do fine on those tests and on your essays. That's called critical race theory. So that's what they teach in Black Studies. And if you get a degree in Black Studies, you basically have a degree in racial grievance. That if you want to be a teacher, you take your little degree and you just start remembering all this. You remember what I just told you have to remember. All of a sudden, you're teaching it to kids in grade school, high school, kids in college. This is a religion if you're in college. And this is happening all over the country. The University of North Carolina, they took it to a new level. That school is known as one of the top public universities in America. There are many, 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 many smart kids in that school. But they also have some really, really, really good basketball teams there. Does the name Michael Jordan and James Worthy ring a bell? They're pretty good football teams, but no, they're not great football. But you know what? You've got to have bodies on your football team. I don't care if you're the University of North Carolina or University of Alabama. The body's got to show up. And a lot of the athletes are going to be black. So what do you do with them? Well, the University of North Carolina, so they had a Black Studies department. And all of a sudden, and they had a guy that was the chairman of the department. This goes back like 20 years, but it lasted almost 20 years. This was a huge deal. And so they had a chairman there that took care of business, hired the professors, made sure people went to class, all that stuff. All of a sudden, he goes and gets another job somewhere. They hire another professor to be the chairman. This guy decides he's going to be a missionary. He's going to travel the world spreading the gospel of critical race theory and black victimization. That's actually a pretty good way to make a living, to tell you the truth. Anyway, so that's what he does. He's still the chairman, but he's going to this conference and that conference. Well, as he goes out the door to the airport, he looks behind at his secretary and he says, "Hey, take care of business for me while I'm away." Well, the first time he was away, all of a sudden he gets a call from the football coach. The football coach says, "Hey, one of my players is kind of, having trouble academically. Anything we can do to get him in one of your classes?" "Sure, come on down." So all of a sudden, the football players started showing up in the Black Studies classes. Lots and lots of them. But after a while, the word got out. This was just a class. All you had to do was show up. You'll get it, whatever the grade you need to get in order to stay on the team. But this is what happened after a while. I mean, the black football players were coming into class. They weren't even down with the fact that if they just showed up and shut up, they'd be fine. No, they were coming in and disrupting the class. They were mocking the teachers, mocking anybody who was actually trying to learn something in class. I mean, they actually had in their Black Studies department, you could go in and take Swahili. So the football players were in there. They would put their feet up on the desk. They would just basically sit there and just totally disrupt the class. And they thought, hey, it was all good. It was all good. This went on. So finally, one of the professors had to call the woman, the secretary, who's like actually the de facto chair. And they said, "Hey, tell your guys not to come to class, okay? I'm down with what's going on. Just tell them not to come to class." So how does good old Colin know all this? Well, after 18 years, everybody kind of figured it out. And I forget how they got busted, but they got busted. They got busted hard. Lots of news stories. There were 3 independent investigations. You can go find them online. You won't believe it when you read them. Each one's like 100 pages, 200 pages long, and they just go chapter and verse. Names, dates, places. I mean, who encouraged this? Who encouraged that? Who lied about this? How this guy got a grade for not showing up in the class? Who the Swahili professor was? Who called the de facto chair and said, "Get your students out of here. I'll give them the damn grade, but they're messing up my class." And so this is college athletics today. I mean, there was a book written, not about college athletics, but there was a book written. It was called "Why Do the Black Kids Sit Together During Lunch in the Cafeteria?" or something like that. And this is a enormously popular book in college classrooms. So nobody's buying it at Barnes & Noble but to read for themselves. But if you're a college kid, you might get it at Barnes & Noble, but you're going to get it at the college bookstore only because your professor told you to read it. And this book has been selling a gajillion copies for a gajillion years. And I'm going to save you a lot of trouble if you wanted to read it. The reason black kids sit together in the cafeteria during lunch is because of white racism. Okay? That's the drill. It's one of those, hey, everybody knows that kind of thing. So now we go back to these Notre Dame players. I mean, they're not the only college players. They're going to be caught in felonies and other offenses this year. They're not going to be the only college players that punch people in the face, punch cops in the face. But it really illustrates a larger point. I mean, what's really animating all these black studies departments and all these colleges? It's like, hey, man, we got to give a place for these athletes to attend class. That's what's going on. But the side effect is, for every one athlete, there's probably 10 regular students in there. None of them are learning anything. No, what they're learning is the exact wrong thing. They're learning that black people are not responsible for anything in their life because it's all about white racism. So you go to these college campuses during these Black Lives Matter rallies, and you see it at Yale. And you see all these people from Yale out there, they're singing, they're dancing, they're talking about Black Lives Matter, they're telling white people to get to the end of the line. They're not studying physics. They're not studying computer science. They're not studying electrical engineering. They're all in the black studies department. Because that's the only way you can get black students into a high-level college and keep the reporters and keep the public officials off of your butt when they come in and say, why aren't you letting black students on this campus? So that's what's going on when you see these 6 college football players here at Notre Dame that spent last night in the Who's Gal. And that's why there are a whole lot of kids, a whole lot of black people in public and private universities taking black studies so they can learn exactly how to not make the black kids angry.